A few months ago, I was talking to this guy, a sales rep at a SaaS company, and he mentioned almost in passing that he spends the first 3 hours of every workday just finding leads, like manually finding leads, scrolling LinkedIn, copying stuff into spreadsheets, rewriting the same cold message over and over, trying to make it sound slightly different each time. And I remember thinking, wait, are you doing that every day? And he kind of laughed and he was like, yeah, that's just a job. Yeah, honestly, he wasn't wrong. That was the job. For years, that's just what lead gen looked like. Repetitive, slow, and kind of soul-crushing if you did it for long enough. Nobody liked it. Everyone just accepted it. But that's not really true anymore. The whole chunk of the process, the finding, the researching, the first message, a lot of it can just run on its own now. Not perfectly, not without you, but enough that doing it manually every day is starting to feel like choosing to wash your clothes by hand when you have a washing machine in the other room. The teams that I've been working with that figured this out aren't doing anything crazy. They're just using about 5 tools, but they're using them in the right order for the right things, and the difference in output is pretty wild. That's what I want to show you today, what each one does, why it actually matters, and how they fit together. But before we get into the tools, there's something worth saying that I feel like most of these videos skip over. Lead generation isn't really one thing. It never was, but we kind of treated it like it was without being honest about how many different jobs that actually involves. You've got to find the right people in the first place, then actually get in front of them, then catch them when they land on your side before they leave. Then you have to move them from interested to booked, and then somehow make all of that happen without it falling apart the moment someone on your team is out sick or just has a bad week. That's 5 different problems, and there's now a tool built specifically for each one. What I want to do is go through them in the order a lead actually moves, from never heard of you to call booked, because that's the only way it makes sense as a system. First one is Clay, and this one changed how I think about prospecting. The old way was hours, sometimes days, on Sales Navigator, buying lists from Zoom info that were already 18 months out of date by the time they reached you, paying someone to verify the emails. The list was always the bottleneck, the thing that best agencies guarded like a trade secret. With Clay, you just type in what you want. Something like, find me every Series A B2B SaaS in the US that hired a head of growth in the last 90 days. A few minutes later, you've got 500 leads. Verified, enriched with the funding round, the tech stack, the recent hires, all pulled fresh. Not from a database someone updated 6 months ago. Fresh. As you can see here, you've got the list, you've got the name, description, type, company size, employee count, founded, follower count, everything in the same list. You can export it into a CSV as well if you click download CSV, or you can send the table data somewhere else. You have here the column research company, and if you click, you have more information about the company. That advantage agencies spent years building, it's gone. Anyone with a Clay account and a half-decent prompt can build a better list in 10 minutes than the team they're competing with can build in a week, which is great if you start using it, and a bit uncomfortable if you're staying doing it the old way. The second one is Relevance AI, because once you've got the list, you still have to actually reach those people. And the old model for that, an SDR sending 80 manually personalized emails a day, 4% reply rate on a good week, 80 grand a year burned out in 14 months, that was already creaking before AI showed up. Relevance AI just makes it impossible to justify. This isn't outreach with some AI features bolted on. It's an actual autonomous agent. It handles the prospecting, the personalization, the sending, the replying, no human in the loop. So for example, you type from the following CSV, prospect leads and contact them offering Landbot as a solution. Then we see here how it's writing the emails and sending them one by one. And since we put in a very large document, it asks us to do it in 2 batches. So we're going to confirm and go ahead. But the personalization is what actually changes things. The agent can find a real trigger. So you can click here on triggers and you see all the different possible triggers. It can be, for example, that a company raised a Series B, or the prospect posted on LinkedIn yesterday, or someone on the team just changed roles. And then the agent writes a one-liner that a human SDR would have missed or never had time to find. And then it sends. And the next morning, the replies are just sitting there waiting for you. Outbound used to scale with how many SDRs you could afford to hire. Now it scales with how many good triggers you can point an agent at. That's a different problem to solve. The numbers are hard to ignore. Teams running these agents are seeing 3 to 5 times the reply rate of human reps at about 10% of the cost. Across languages, time zones, email, and LinkedIn simultaneously. One agent doing what used to take a team of 10 people. So now your list is built and your outbound is running, which means more people landing on your side than ever before. Which brings up the question almost nobody wants to deal with, which is, what are you actually doing with that traffic when it lands? Tool 3. Landbot. And this one's close to home for me because it's what I work on, so I'll try not to be annoying about it. But the problem it solves is real and I see it constantly. Someone clicks your ad, lands on your site, and the first thing they hit is a static form with 12 fields. So name, company, role, team size, budget, timeline, use case. They take one look and they leave. You just paid for that click and got nothing back. The numbers on this are pretty grim. The average lead form converts at 3 to 5%, which means 95 out of 100 people you paid to bring to your site decide it's not worth the hassle in under 5 seconds. Landbot replaces the form with a conversational AI agent that captures, qualifies, and routes the lead in one interaction, one question at a time. Each question adapts to what they said. It scores them in real life and sends them to the right next step, for example, calendar or sales rep or self-serve, without anyone having to babysit it. The form feels like filing taxes. The conversation feels like, well, a conversation. And here's the thing I actually want you to sit with. The form was never the right tool for this job. The whole industry spent 15 years trying to optimize it. Shorter forms, multi-step forms, conditional logic, and none of it really moved the needle because the format itself was a problem. AI didn't make a better form, it just got rid of the form. The results across Landbot's customer base back this up. Conversational capture runs about 30% higher conversion than static forms on the same traffic. Lead Laundry, a UK property company, went from 552 leads a month to 3,588 on the same ad spend. Cost per lead dropped from $650 to $400. Lead quality up 50%. Arora project tripled their lead volume from Google Ads and dropped their CPL by 30% at the same time. Same budget, same traffic, just a different experience after the click. Which brings me to the thing worth saying out loud. The first part of the video is about building a better top of the funnel. Tool 1 finds the right people. Tool 2 reaches them. But if you fix all of that and you're still catching the traffic with a form that hasn't changed since 2019, the bottleneck just moved. Everything breaks right there. So once the capture is sorted, what happens when someone actually wants to talk to you? Because that's where most companies fall apart again. Tool 4, Retell AI, the thing that handles your phone. And this is a moment most teams genuinely don't think about. A qualified lead wants to book a call. They click the button, Calendly opens, and the only slot that works is Thursday at 3 p.m. They think, Okay, I'll come back to this. They close the tab, they forget, and then you lose them somewhere between the intent and the actual booking. Not because they weren't interested, just because there were too many steps in the way. Retell removes that whole friction point. It's a voice agent. It answers your inbound calls instantly, 24 hours a day. It follows up with warm leads on Outbound. It qualifies, checks the calendar, books the meeting, sends the invite, all in the same call. We're talking about a real call, maybe 30 seconds. An agent picks up, asks the qualifying questions, finds a time that works, and books it. Nobody on your team has touched it. So if we go to Retell and we click on one of our agents, this is how it looks in the background. So you have the full agent here, you have different blocks, and you can click here on test agent and run test. And as you can see here, we get a message. We can see here the different blocks. We have the greeting block, and then we have the qualification one with all the options and the settings here. Then we have a block to extract the lead data, and we're gonna reply to the agent. So yeah, I'd like to see if it would be a good fit for us, your solution. And then it's asking us if we need a repair. We're gonna say a full installation. Then it's asking us for our name. My name is Irene. Okay, and then we can continue the conversation. We can keep talking. Think about what that actually means. Your business has been closed every day from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. since the day it started. That's 60% of the week just gone. Voice agents take you from 45 hours of coverage a week to 168. Always on, always answering in whatever language the lead happens to speak. And the company that responds first wins. Every speed to lead study for the past decade says the same thing. Voice AI is the first thing that actually makes first mean 2 seconds at 3 a.m. on a Sunday in Portuguese in any circumstance. Tool 5, N8M, the thing that wires everything together. The trap I see most teams fall into is they pick up one or two of these tools, duct tape them together with Zapier, and then wonder why their lead generation still feels broken. The tools aren't the problem, the wiring is. N8N is an open agentic workflow platform that sits underneath all four. It moves data between them, triggers the right actions, and makes decisions on the fly when something doesn't go according to plan. A full pipeline looks something like this. Clay pulls a new lead matching your ICP and hands off to Relevance AI for Outbound. The reply lands in your inbox and N8N picks it up, scores it against your criteria, and routes the prospect to a Landbot conversation tailored to their industry. Then they qualify in the chat, and Retell takes the booking and calls them within 60 seconds. The data flows back into your CRM. A Slack notification hits the sales channel at that time, and then a nurture sequence kicks off in the background. One continuous pipe. Nobody on your team touched any of this. It's all automatic. The last 5 years of lead gen were about which best-in-class tool you used at each step. The next 5 are about how well those tools are connected. The advantage isn't the tools anymore, it's the wiring. Stack all 5 together and you don't just improve lead gen, you turn it into something that runs 24/7 without you in the loop. Now, if I had to pick one of these 5 to start with, it's the capture layer. Not because it's the most interesting or exciting, but because it's the one part of the funnel you already control right now without buying anything new or changing your ad spend. And in most cases, it's the one that's quietly leaking the most. I did a whole separate video on exactly that. Why static forms are killing conversion rates, what conversational capture actually looks like when it's working, and some real numbers from companies that made the switch. Not hypotheticals, actual before and after. It's right here if you want to go deeper. See you over there.